Okay, so this is what I have downloaded, and you can see it's a Dornier Arrow by Merrick, designed by Merrick, and it's a repaint by 3 Turner Models. Got it at ecardmodels.com, and this is just a picture of showing all the little parts. So those are all the bulkheads that'll need to be cut out, um, and I'm just trying to show kind of what you get. There's one of the 2 spinners pedal design, so when we get there I'll show you how I do that. Hopefully it'll work. There's the front. There are some exhausts for the front engine, cockpit area, and the rear engine, and the rear engine exhausts, and the tail of the airplane. Propellers, of course. And then here's some landing gear things and some cockpit. There's the instrument panel, there's a seat, and there's the interior. Kind of lame. We're going to do a little work on that. We're going to do some scratch building of that. Those are probably landing gear doors, I think nose wheel doors. Landing gear oleo struts. Going to make my own wheels. There's the wings with the big openings for the everything, for all the wheels. Wing parts, wing skins, etc. All very nicely done, although I'm not going to use these markings. And then here are some cutout parts that need to be put onto balsa. And there is basically the direction showing where formers and things go. It's relatively complicated, and it's a hard shape to get. So the wing's going to go together, and it gives you some general ideas of how things put together. There's going to be the wing spars, how the wings hold together. I think they'll be pretty good. And that's the general layout of the nose gear and the landing gear. Now the problem is, see all that haze on there? I sprayed with my clear, but it was called clear chalk, which I didn't realize, and I ruined it. So what I decided to do, instead of wasting all that paper and ink, is go ahead and use this. But I'm going to use this as a model to show you how to scribe panel lines, which I'm doing now with a piece of 1/16 piano wire with the edge rounded over and a straight edge. I'm going through all the panel lines. You can see on the back, maybe you can see, little edges. And what those are going to do is, when we're all done, we're going to coat this thing and airbrush it. So those are all the parts that need to be put together on cardboard, or in my case I use 1/32 balsa as usual. There's the main spars for the wings, and we'll show how those go together later in terms of how the box structure looks. But the ribs basically will go in at those places, and they're going to hopefully give us a nice rigid form. So I didn't show this, but I rolled the front first part, and you can see there's a tab, just like typical. There's a little tab that goes in and holds the piece together once you form the cylindrical part of the nose. Same thing with the cowling. So this is the cowling. I had a little trouble with this later. That edge is where the front cowling is going to go on. The rear part actually has little cooling fins. It's got the same thing. It's rolled, and there's a little piece in there. That is supposed to be where the front spinner is going to go. So that's like I guess, I don't think it's a radiator, but it's some sort of front to the engine where the propeller goes. And that little arrow shows you up, which is nice. And you basically are going to pop that in and kind of test fit it over and over again until it's right. And these fit really snug in the cowling part. They worked really great. So put that in. It works wonderfully. A little crooked. So what I do, in other words, they didn't line them up perfectly. So what I tend to do is, you can cut out the centers of things, which these designs actually have those when you look at these. I just take a pair of tweezers and stick them through the balsa, and then I can use it as leverage, and I can move them around. So here I put it in through the bottom, and then I just tap it down while the whole cowling is flat, just to see how it's going to fit, because now it's perfect. So I add a little glue, put it in again, using my little tweezers to hold it and get it inside, and I get it just roughly inside in this case, and then turn it over, take my handle of my X-Acto and just tamp it down, and now I've got it perfectly aligned automatically, just making sure that those parts all line up, so the lines are all perfect. Now here's the other side. That side note is going to be the part that's going to go on The front cowling lip is going to go on that. So you might notice that basically I had these two pieces inverted. There's that little center piece I've drawn, and then you can see those little red hacks there. That lets me know where that piece is supposed to go. So I add a little glue very, very quickly and plop it in there. And then once it's in, you got to sort of, what I should have done is actually splay these little pieces out like that before I put it in, because then it would slide right in, and then I could put them back later. But I was too much of a doorknob to do that. Just gently push it in place, and you can't go from the back side. You got to be just really careful. That line lines up perfectly. I'm so pleased with myself. And then, like I said, turns out I've got those on the wrong side. That part is supposed to go on the part with the ragged edge. See, that's looked good, but when I went back and looked, that part with the cowling flaps, that goes towards the tail of the aeroplane where I'm pointing towards. This part with the saw teeth goes towards the front. That's where the cowl ring is going to go on. The front is that away to the right. And you'll notice that the piece going to the front has that stupid former in it, not the piece that's supposed to be behind there. That piece, 2A, is supposed to be there. So I'm an idiot, as you can see. So what to do? It's all dry. I lined it up beautifully. So what I did was I printed out another piece of the plan, just on real thin typing paper, cut that little piece out, you can see right there, that would have gone, and I just glued that sucker right in there. Made sure it fit, put some glue on, and just glued it in. That's cheating, but I didn't want to destroy the whole thing. Everything fits so dang well. It's just a moronic thing to do. Just to make sure you're paying attention, I put an F for forward, and a little smiley face so that I know that's all going to be hidden in a little bit. But anyway, now what goes on that front part is this piece. This is the part that's going to be the cowl lip in the front. It'll give the edging. And like everything, it's got a little piece that's going to help tab put it together. A lot of people just end glue these things, but the tabs help me. The only issue I have is sometimes the tabs, like when I make them out of this 65, 67 pound stock, cardstock, they're too thick. They leave weird indentations. So I sand them back a little bit and they thin out nicely. Add a little glue and there's a dotted line there and you can see where that's supposed to go. You just line it up like so and take your big fat finger and push it down. Dries nice. Give it a nice pressure and this glue dries pretty fast as usual. Now, I took a little back end of a nice brush and I just rolled it on my little mouse, back of my old mouse pad, and you can see it curls that piece of paper right up beautifully, and that's perfect because you kind of over rotate it and now you won't have such a trouble fitting it together. Once it's all together like that, now you can real easy, or once it's curled, you can really easy slide that together with a little glue, bam, clamp it down with your fingers or tweezers, done. So put a little glue on there, put it together, line it up, make sure it's perfecto, squeeze it. My thumb, by the way, is what happens when you hit it with a hammer, that little dot on my thumb. You'll see it during this process. Make sure it dried, and I also kind of rolled it with the back of a Sharpie just to make sure it's good. Now, the saw teeth are where that's going to go, so you tend to kind of, in my case, I've noticed, you sort of flip them in a little bit like that, and now you just put this ring on top and line it up. Again, lining the bottom seam up with the bottom, like so, and then pushing the whole thing on and just sort of checking it and make sure it fits. And you can see, by gosh and by golly, that's going to fit nice. Now here's my little markers. So I had to color those little pieces in. Now in reality, since we're going to prime and paint this bad boy, I really didn't need to do this, but I'm kind of old habits die hard. Put a little glue on the saw teeth, on the shark teeth. And since this is test fit, it should fit perfectly. When you add glue, things tend to not be perfect. The glue takes up space, but in this case, it worked out pretty well. Just making sure I start out by making sure that's lined up. In this case, I took some tweezers and I kind of squished the flap to try to make it so that it adhered a bit so it wouldn't fall off. And then I kind of work my way around and end up basically pushing that cowl ring over the front. And again, fits really well. You can see that once I snug it up there, basically the seam almost disappears. With a little bit of sanding or a little burnishing, that would basically be gone. So if I wasn't going to paint it, this would be actually a pretty good seam. And you can see, just to make sure everything lines up on that bottom seam. On the inside, it had a little bit of a bend, so I took that round end of that piece and of the um, handle and rolled it. Now I'm just checking to make sure the color lines match. Beautiful on one side. The center line matches. Beautiful. Just what it's supposed to do. And the other side matches beautifully. So that's nice. Everything turned out good. So the front cowling is complete. Now that's, again, inside there is going to go some stuff we'll do later, but now it's fixed. So now the problem is to put these pieces in, and I know which former goes where. The issue is when I start putting these together, I notice huge gaps. So I either cut those formers too small or they're not correctly done in the plan. So what I do is take good old Scotch tape or masking tape and I cut thin strips off of it. I don't know if anybody else does this, but this way it's already stickumed. And you just roll this around the outside edge and push it so that it adheres pretty well. And all that does, if you roll a piece of that around, it depends on how bad off it is. All you're doing is incrementally making it larger and larger until it fits just so. So you put a piece on and you check it. And you put another piece on and you check it until you've got it to fit just snug and perfect. I've never had this happen with a Merrick model before, so I think I don't know, maybe I must have cut something different because almost all the formers I had to do this with. But anyway, here I am test fitting it, and I had trouble. So again, pull those little teeth out, those little petals out so that you can fit your piece in, your former in. And this again, just test fitting. You can see I've got that masking tape all around it. Line up that bottom, and then kind of crunkle it up, and there it is. And then you just make sure it looks good, and look at that. No more seam, no more opening around the edges. So now it's the right shape and the right size. Good news, that's excellent. Added a little glue. You can see there's glue on the outside because I edited this down a lot. So you can survive watching it. And then you just pop it in. Again, once there's glue in place, magically things don't always fit perfectly. In this case, worked out all right. Just a little playing around, and lo and behold, there it is. And it's clean, it's good. What's going to happen now is this piece is going to fit on here, and I test fit it. I line up the bottom, kind of look and see how it's going to go. Things are working pretty well, and I just twist this, boom, line that up, and when I turn this around, you see that the colors line up pretty dang well. Again, the different shades are my fault because I sprayed it with this stupid wrong clear coat. But things are lining up. Even my pan lines I put in are lining up pretty well. So commit it to glue, kind of tap off the excess, and then go ahead and slide it in there. And this again, when you turn it, so you grab it and kind of bam, put it in place, just so it's lined up like that. Now everything else is good. Now I just kind of squish it together carefully and make sure it comes together, sweep off the excess. Went in with the back of a handle of a brush again and just kind of made sure those teeth were connected, but it looks good. The only thing left now is to add the front. And again, this front panel, or this front former it was really skinny. That's what I'm trying to do with my fingers to show you. So you can see that I added multiple layers, I think like 3 layers of tape around there to make it work. But with those layers on there, it fits really nice. And plop that in. I think this is a good suggestion is the skins, go by the skins, don't go by the formers. Put the skins on correctly or together correctly and match the formers to the skins. Don't do the other way around. Don't cut the skins to match the formers because it'll never work out. The curves will never be right. So change your formers if you mess up or if they're incorrectly enlarged. But I'm pleased because look, that's a gun trough, and bang, it lines up beautifully with the gun troughs where the guns are going to go. So that's awesome. So there's the front end, basically ready to go. Now I need to add my front cowling. And again, You use that bottom seam as a place to line up, and it wasn't quite perfect. Some of my skin was a little off, so I'm sanding it back. Once I got it right and fitted it, add a little glue, plop it on there, and you kind of push it in place. Make sure everything is even. Make sure it looks good, which it does. And then making sure after it dries, there's my line going all the way down, so that's even. You can see the color line goes along there. It matches pretty dang well to that front piece. And then there's a huge step. What the? I have no idea. That's even. The other part's even, but I don't know what that step. I don't know if that's a problem, or maybe that's the way the real airplane looked. I don't know. But in any event, this thing is together, and you can see some of those hash marks are where we're going to cut things out, like for the cowling or for the cockpit. But overall, there's the front end done and ready to go. Pretty neat looking so far.